The true weight of empire is not found in crowns or proclamations, but in the places where fear is converted into cold, hard contingency. I learned this lesson on the savage, wind-whipped coast of County Clare, Ireland, where the Atlantic's fury had once dashed the pride of Spain against the rocks. My search began far from there, however, in the serene, dust-moated library of Hartwell Hall, a decaying English manor. I was reviewing a job lot of papers purchased by a private collector, a jumble of Tudor-era miscellany vaguely labelled Walsingham, Household and Sundry. Amid invoices for candles and sealing wax was a seemingly routine letter from Sir Francis Drake, dated September 15th, 1588. Its main text discussed the urgent need for tar and new cordage for the fleet, the mundane aftermath of a miraculous victory. But history's most vital secrets are often written in the spaces nobody thinks to look. Holding the parchment under the violet glow of a UV lamp, a hidden text emerged in the bottom margin. Written in the sharp, acidic ink of pressed lemon juice, a common spy's trick, was a tiny, frantic postscript. The matter of the Irish stones is settled. The freight is stored on St. Michael's Line, at the fortress that looks to the sea and the bog. It awaits your cipher and the crown's dire need. The Spanish reckon without it. Burn this. F.D. My pulse quickened. The matter of the Irish stones. In the clandestine cant of Elizabethan intelligencers, stones could mean testicles, courage, weight, or most pertinently coins. Spanish silver reales were pieces of 8. This was almost certainly a euphemism for treasure. St. Michael's Line was the rumoured ley line connecting sacred sites across Europe, often associated with hidden knowledge. The fortress that looks to the sea and the bog had to be in Western Ireland, where the shattered ships of the Spanish Armada had found their graves in the autumn gales of 1588. This was a deliberate, strategic deposit, not a panicked hide. The hunt for Elizabeth I's $80 million Armada reserve, her secret apocalypse fund, had begun. Clue 1. The fortress on the line in the captain's log. The research was a deep dive into Elizabethan realpolitik and Gaelic clan loyalties. The fortress needed to be remote, defensible, and under the control of someone the English crown could coerce or trust in late 1588. It had to sit on the St. Michael's alignment. And it required a bog at its back, a natural barrier against prying eyes or rapid approach. Weeks of cross-referencing historical maps, land grants, and geological surveys pinpointed one location: Donegal Castle, a cylindrical 16th-century tower house perched on a cliff north of Doolin. It stared directly into the maw of the Atlantic, the sea, while behind it sprawled the vast, treacherous bog of Donegal. In 1588, it was held by the O'Briens of Thomond, who were, at that precarious moment, nominally loyal to the crown. It was perfect, a remote sentinel on the wreckage path of the fleeing Armada. Gaining survey permission required navigating a labyrinth of Irish heritage laws. Finally, on a rain-lashed morning, my team set up ground-penetrating radar in the castle's dank, vaulted basement. The scans revealed a uniform bedrock floor with one glaring anomaly. A perfect, narrow shaft, about 2 feet across, plunging straight down like a stone well for nearly 12 feet before opening into a small chamber. Excavation was a meticulous process. 6 feet down, we uncovered a circular capstone of denser granite. Using inflatable airbags for even pressure, we lifted it. The air from below was cool and carried a faint, briny tang. Lowering a light, we saw not gold, but a wrapped bundle. It was a book, sheathed in waxed canvas and sealed with tar. With gloved hands, we brought it to the surface. It was a Spanish naval officer's log, its vellum pages salt-stained but preserved by the constant, cool humidity. The crest identified it as belonging to Captain Diego Flores de Valdés of the Galeas Nuestra Señora del Rosario, one of the Armada's richest treasure ships. Famously captured by Drake in the campaign's opening hours, the log detailed manifests, crew morale, and navigational fixes. But inside the front cover, in a bold, angular hand that contrasted with the Spanish cursive, was a rough coastal sketch and a notation. 5721 NW. Seek the dragon's mouth at the ebb. The tide is the keykeeper. Clue 2. The dragon's mouth and the tidal cipher. The numbers were enigmatic. 5721 NW. Initially, we plotted them as coordinates, 57 dig north, 24 dig west, which placed us in the empty Atlantic west of Scotland, a useless point. The breakthrough came from Dr. Aris Thorne, a marine archaeologist on my team. "It's not a location," she said, pointing to the log's own astronomical tables. "It's a tidal cipher. The Spanish noted extreme tides by the day of the year and the lunar hour. 57 is the 57th day of the year. February 26th, 1589, the year after the Armada. 21 was the 21st hour after the last new moon. We cross-referenced historical lunar data with modern tidal algorithms for the Clare coast. The result was stunning. It predicted the single lowest spring tide of that year. A phenomenal ebb that would pull the ocean back dozens of meters farther than usual, exposing sea caves and shelves unseen for generations. The dragon's mouth at the ebb. Local lore in Clare spoke of Polendraig, the dragon's hole, a legendary sea cave north of Doolin that was said to roar in storms and was never fully charted, as its entrance was submerged save for a few minutes during the year's most extreme low tides. We had to wait for the winter's king tide. When it arrived, we were on the cliffs at dawn with drones and diving gear. As the water sucked back with an unnatural roaring drain, it revealed a jagged, dark opening in the black limestone, about 15 feet wide, still half choked with swirling foam. It did indeed look like a gullet. We had a window of less than 30 minutes. Clue 3. The Cave of the Hatchet Men. Donning dry suits, we swam into the dragon's mouth as the first chilling surge of returning water hissed at our heels. The tunnel angled sharply upwards, and within 20 yards we breached into an air-filled chamber. Our headlamps cut the absolute black. The walls were water-smoothed, but the floor had been leveled by tools. In the chamber's center stood a massive, water-rounded boulder that had no geological reason to be there. It had been hauled in, carved into its face, worn but deep, was the Drake family crest, a wyvern, a winged dragon, with a hatchet in its claw. The symbol of the Queen's most feared privateer. Beneath it, the inscription, "For England, in her darkest hour. The key is the day the world changed." No lock was visible. Scanning the boulder with an ultrasonic densitometer, we found a discrepancy on the wyvern's chest, where the hatchet touched its scales, a plug of disguised material. Carefully chiseling away the salt concrete, we found a cylindrical bronze-lined hole. The day the world changed. For Drake, Elizabeth, and Europe, that was July 29th, 1588. The night of the fireships at Gravelines, the breaking of the Spanish Crescent. What key did Drake have from that specific day? The answer was in the log. Listed among Captain Valdez's seized personal effects was his cello personal de oro, his personal signet ring. That ring, a trophy from the first major capture of the campaign, taken on the very day the world changed for Spain, was never entered into the official English prize inventory. Drake, we reasoned, kept it. He would use the ring of the defeated to seal the vault of the plunder. We had to improvise. Using a high-resolution scan of the eagle crest from the log's own wax seal, we 3D printed a replica signet in hardened brass-infused resin. It was a gamble born of forensic logic. As icy water began to pool around our ankles, we inserted the replica into the hole. It fit with a gritty certainty. We turned it clockwise. For a dreadful second, nothing. Then, with a deep, grinding thud that vibrated through the rock, the entire front of the boulder, a half-ton slab, swung inward on massive hidden stone pivots. Clue 4. The Cistern of Gloriana. The chamber beyond was man-made. A cistern carved from bedrock and lined with opus signinum, the waterproof Roman cement revived by Elizabethan engineers. It was bone-dry, and it was full. The sight bypassed intellect and struck directly at the gut. This was not a neat royal treasury. It was the chaotic, brutal spoils of naval war frozen in time. Salt-hardened leather sacks, many split, disgorged cataracts of gold escudos and doubloons that formed glittering drifts. Repurposed powder kegs held gold ingots. their surfaces still bearing the smelter marks of Mexico and Potosi. In a niche, wrapped in oiled sailcloth, were the admiral's trophies: a gold astrolabe of breathtaking intricacy and a gold backstaff, its veins engraved with the arms of Spain. These were not merely loot, they were the severed instruments of Spanish imperial navigation. On a central stone plinth rested a small lead box. Inside was a covenant, signed by Francis Drake and countersigned with the cryptic symbols of Dr. John Dee, the Queen's astrologer and spymaster. It designated this treasure as the Sovereign's Private Reserve, to be used only upon the joint, encrypted order of the monarch and the principal secretary, Walsingham, for the singular preservation of the realm and the Protestant succession in time of utmost peril, invasion, or rebellion. It was Elizabeth's doomsday fund, financed by her greatest enemy. The Apocalypse Policy and the 80 million reckoning. The discovery created a firestorm at the intersection of history, politics, and national pride. Here was incontrovertible proof of state-sanctioned piracy on a staggering scale, and of a monarch whose financial prudence bordered on paranoia. Valuation was a monumental task shrouded in diplomatic tension. The coins numbered in the tens of thousands. The bullion weighed over 300 kilograms. The navigational instruments were unique masterpieces. A preliminary metal value started at $50 million. But this was not mere bullion. This was the Armada treasure, with a provenance so sharp it cut through centuries. It represented the seed capital of England's naval empire. Its historical value effectively doubled the sum. After fraught negotiations, the final conservative valuation was set at $80 million. Then came the diplomatic reckoning. The treasure was found in the Republic of Ireland, hidden by an English captain, looted from Spain. A delicate tripartite agreement was forged. Ireland, as the sovereign territory, would house the hoard in a purpose-built, high-security wing of the Clare Museum in Ennis. The United Kingdom and Spain would receive shared curatorial rights and scholarly access. The gold would remain together, a cold testament to a triangle of fear, ambition, and survival. The true discovery. The anatomy of paranoia. The true treasure was the chilling insight into the Elizabethan mind. Elizabeth Tudor trusted no one, not her parliaments, not her suitors, not her own treasury. With her ruthless sea dogs and mystic intelligence at D, she created a shadow exchequer, a fortress of wealth hidden in the land of a fractious ally, paid for by the empire she had humiliated. It was the ultimate expression of her reign, brilliant, circumspect, ruthless, and forever braced for the axe to fall. For over 4 centuries, the dragon's mouth guarded its secret through rebellion and war. The tides performed their eternal dance, covering and revealing the entrance in a cycle known only to the stars and the long-dead captain who plotted it. It waited for a drop of lemon juice on parchment in a quiet library, and for those who understood that the most powerful rulers are those who prepare for their own downfall, to follow the retreating water into the dark. The Armada was scattered, an empire was built, and the gold that funded its darkest contingency now gleams under museum lights, a monument not to glory, but to Gloriana's profound, calculating fear.